So this is a continuation from the previous video where I spoke about that whole kind of court case, which is more or less a glorified fiasco, being honest with you. And there's a couple of important issues which I forgot to kind of mention. And I just want to emphasize again, I don't want to bring a case against this whole kind of, I don't want to bring a case against the solicitor involved in this, unless you deem that I could. As I get further into explaining this, I'll explain why I have an issue with Waterford Gardaí and Waterford City Council. Because as bad as this is, and I understand how kind of unbelievable all this is only the tip of the iceberg. This gets a whole lot worse. But there's a couple of kind of incidents regarding the whole kind of situation in court, which is important that I forgot to kind of speak about. Obviously, I spoke about this Mary Bird who came to do the report, which Leona MacDonald kind of manipulated me to having her on the case. For the reasons that I explained, I would never have anything to do with Waterford Tussle in any way, shape or form anywhere in around my family. And she knew this. She recognised this because she was told this because I had explained it to the previous solicitor. This is why Dr. Theresa Graham was brought into the case. But they needed the case to be corrupted, and this is why Dr. Theresa Graham was removed from the case by Miss MacDonald. But when Mary Bird came to do this report, she came twice on 2 visits. The first time she met me before she met me ex, and to be honest with you, all she really wanted to find out was what I knew about Anne Carey. I explained who Anne Carey was. She told me that she didn't know who she was, she never heard of her before, but she kept referring to her as Anne, which I found very peculiar, considering she's saying that she never knew the woman and she never met the woman. So I found this strange. She went in and she met me ex a week or 2 after this. Then she came and met me again. And she brought up basically that my ex was saying that I was kind of a drug-addled, kind of glorified pervert. That's the only way to put it. No point in lying about this. This is what she was implying. And had I anything to say about it? And we shared a computer, myself and my ex, both of us together. And on the computer there was explicit photographs of myself and herself engaging in kind of adult stuff. I just put it that way. I'm not going to shy away from speaking about this, because my ex decided to try and kind of paint a very nasty picture of me. So when Miss Bird came and spoke about this, I was able to produce videos and photographs that showed me ex with a face full of cocaine. Despite the kind of content of the photos and the videos being sexually explicit, it wasn't about the sexual explicit nature of this stuff. It was about the cocaine that was in the photographs, and it was about the cocaine that was plastered all over her nose, and the fact that she was standing next to a table with a large amount of cocaine on it. I never tried to show these to anyone. They were on a computer that we both shared. As I just said, Miss Bird asked me had I any problem with handing them over. I said I didn't have any problem handing them over. In fact, she threatened me with the whole revenge porn, which I took exception to, because I never threatened to kind of show these or speak about these with anyone. The only other person I knew about these, being honest with you, was Leona MacDonald, the solicitor. Because we were talking offhand where she was saying that my ex was employed and all this kind of stuff. And I produced some of the photos and I gave them to Miss MacDonald to show that my ex was a liar, carrying on like she doesn't take drugs. Like, she was down here selling drugs. She was down there selling cocaine and hash, and she was getting heroin on top of it, which I didn't know about. I didn't know about the cocaine, I didn't know about the hash. I was taking the cocaine, but she started getting heroin, and she ran up a bill for heroin, and I didn't know anything about this. And then one day I got a phone call from these people from Dublin, and they were looking for the money, and I didn't know anything about any of this. So when I queried it, they told me then the amount of money that she owed for heroin. She was after sneaking down heroin for like kind of 9 or 10 months, and she ran up a huge bill. But this was not something that I was going to talk about. I recognised in court that if this was brought up, that we'd probably have the social services kind of looking into the whole kind of situation, and I'm not going to bring that stuff onto the kids. But Mary Bird was tipped off essentially by Leona MacDonald, and was concerned that these photographs was going to be handed in to the judge. She was in court claiming she was drug free, that she doesn't go near drugs, that I take drugs and all this kind of stuff. It was all blatantly lies. We were both taking drugs. I had the other apartment, just to go up there and kind of like take drugs. We'd get a babysitter. We'd go up there, we'd take drugs, we'd watch porn, we'd engage in adult stuff. If I wasn't up there, I was in hotels. She decided to hide all of that. And the reason she hid all of that, it was not because of the sexual, explicit nature of it. It was because of her drug deal, what she was trying to conceal, of her drugs that she was selling out in Tramore, and the heroin that she was getting behind everybody's back But when Mary Bird asked me had I any issue with handing these over, I said I didn't, and I handed them all over. I didn't have any issue with handing these over. Why would I? But I gave them over. But on top of that, Mary Bird, she asked me would I sign over my passwords. What kind of passwords? The passwords to my phone, the passwords to my emails, the passwords to my internet. No, I didn't have anything to hide. And I know now, looking back, and I shouldn't have done this, but I did sign over the documentation. But I did sign over the form. She produced the form for me to sign, and this was giving them the HSE Tusla access to me kind of emails, to me passwords, to me phone records, all of this. But as I said, I didn't have anything to hide, so I didn't have any problem with signing. I was informed then afterwards that they did not have any legal right to come and ask me for this, and they would have had to go through court proceedings to get this, and that I should get it back. Now, I've been trying to get this back as it's my data for actually many years. Like this here is from Tusla, as you can see. It's dated the 15th of February 2022. And I wrote to him under the Freedom of Information, and I explained the situation, and I said I wanted the document back, that they had no legal right to take this document. They offered me back a photocopy of the document. I said I didn't want a photocopy of the document, I wanted the original of the document. They said they couldn't give me the original, they could only give me a photocopy. After that, I tried to contact them several times. They simply just ignore me. This is what the whole problem is with this case. People just ignore me in the hope that I'll go away. But as I said in the last video, this Mary Bird, she wrote a hatchet job on me for the judge. It was passed to me solicitor. When I was in court today, it was to be handed in. And Miss Mary Bird, despite telling me, because I asked her, are you going to be in court? And she assured me that she was going to be in court. And she never turned up in court. And upon hearing these lies, because Leona MacDonald told me some of the kind of crap that was in this report, and that's the only way to describe it, I took exception to this. But in court with me was my older sister, the girl that had come and kind of done the whole supervised visits with me at the beginning out in Tranmore. And she was hearing this, and she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She knew like this was complete and utter lies. My ex was saying we broke up in 2013 and kind of that I wasn't a good father. It was all just complete and utter lies. But my sister would have been in and out of the house like constantly. Like she was there at my father's funeral. Obviously, like my ex was there draped all over me for everybody to see. This was in 2015. But as I said, Mary Bird never turned up in court. And my sister wanted to give evidence. My sister was in court and she wanted to give evidence to the judge. Basically just to tell the truth. I wanted to support me or any of this. She just wanted to tell the truth. And Leona MacDonald essentially didn't want her giving evidence, if I'm being honest with you. So what she done is she told my sister that they could potentially bring up a personal. So Miss MacDonald told my sister that potentially they're going to bring up a kind of personal issue regarding my sister. Now this had nothing to do with the case, nothing to do with anyone else. And to be honest with you, it was actually kind of fabricated. It was something that was confided in me ex by my sister. It was nothing to do with me. It was nothing to do with anybody else. And this was basically brought up by Miss MacDonald in an effort to kind of give me sister cold feet. And my sister was never in court before. She never dealt with the law or any of this kind of stuff. So she obviously was kind of frightened, and she was concerned that all of this was going to be all over the newspapers, not knowing the whole kind of family law situation. And what happened then is they got an adjournment for one day. And that evening then my sister rang me and she said, I'm sorry John, but I'm going to have to pull out of the case, that I can't deal with her anymore, referring to my ex. So Miss MacDonald got rid of the only witness that I had to come down that would have been privy to how I was as a father and as a partner. And also then Mary Bird never turned up in court. But when Mary Bird did turn up a couple of weeks before to do the report, she rang me off a mobile phone number, and I had a mobile phone number in my phone. So I went outside the court and I rang her up, and she didn't know who it was. So when I rang her up, I said, this is John Healy. Why weren't you in court? What kind of a report was that you were after writing? And this is no word of a lie. She pretended to start crying on the phone, and she just said that her dog had just died, and she hung up on me, and then she blocked me. But she had these explicit kind of photos and kind of videos of what we were doing. In our private life. They were given by me to Miss Bird. Dr. Anne Carey, who was an associate of my ex, retrieved these, if I'm being honest with you, through Mary Bird. Mary Bird clearly knew Miss Anne Carey. She wasn't calling her Miss Carey, she was calling her Anne. She kept asking me about Anne. So that's another kind of strange situation. I can give you some kind of context to how kind of poisonous this whole kind of situation was in court. And then when I went up to the supervised visits, which I explained up in Dublin, which I'd done, and then I got awarded the kids in court afterwards. But I was doing the supervised visits. The people running the place, they called me aside one day and they said, who's this woman that's coming into the place with your ex? And I said, which woman? And they said she's about 5 foot tall, kind of shortish hair, kind of like a boy, pushing 50. This was Dr. Anne Carey. This was exactly Anne Carey. And they explained who she was, and I asked why. And they explained to me that this woman had come into the men's network, this is the name of the place up in Dublin, and she had pretended that she had worked with one of the managers of the place. She tried to pretend that she was after working with her like 20, 25 years ago. She was clearly after pulling this woman's file, and she knew she was after working. I think it was down in Wexford or something. And she was after pulling the woman's file, and she was trying to pass off that she was after working with her 20, 25 years ago. And the woman called her out and said that she was still in contact with all those people that she worked with all those years ago, and she would know her. And this woman turned around and walked out of the building, and that was Dr. Anne Carey. That'll give you some idea of the nature and the ego of this woman to even try and do something like this. Another one or two things I just want to mention quickly. Towards the end of 2015, the court braked for Christmas holidays, obviously, and my ex sent me down a letter in the post out of nowhere, and the very first line on the letter was, due to your unthinkable actions towards the kids. This almost kind of drove me mad. I went straight to the guards with it. I wanted kind of clarity on what this letter meant. I went to the solicitor, Miss Leona MacDonald, as usual. It was useless. Given all the kind of now sexual slander that was after spread around Waterford, on top of the fact that she wouldn't let me see the kids, you could imagine how people jumped to the wrong conclusion. But I had to wait till the court started again in 2016, and I went up and I handed the letter to the judge. And first of all, the judge called her up in the box. He said, what are you doing even contacting them? You're in here looking for safety orders, and then you're writing them letters. And she done the usual, pretends to cry. This was her thing. So the judge asked her to explain, because I was livid over this letter. I wanted an explanation. I was at the saying to the judge that this is the kind of character of this person. This is what she's doing. And she tried to say that she was referring to the fact that the kids had to move house. That she would never say anything like this about me, that I was a great father. And the judge just rolled his eyes and told her to get down out of the box. And that letter is still available also. And during another one of the breaks in court, then my ex comes down and bearing in mind that she wouldn't let me see the kids. This whole fiasco not letting me see the kids, but she comes down and asks me, do you want to see the kids? Obviously I do. I goes out and meets the kids with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And she comes along with a kind of a Waterford freewheeler. This is a motorcycle group in Waterford, so-called gatekeepers of Waterford. So she comes down with this fella driving her car, wearing his motorcycle kind of jacket with all these patches on. I'm obviously supposed to be intimidated, but I'm not. But this is the kind of stuff that she was doing. This is the kind of stuff she was doing all the time. This nasty, nasty behaviour. And I don't mean like it's just a messy breakup. This like woman is insane. And around the start of 2016, they basically couldn't kind of provoke me, being honest with you. And the wheels started to come off. Miss MacDonald was being exposed for being corrupt. My ex is being exposed for being the spiteful liar that she is. What nobody knew is the judge was writing down notes as the court case went on. And she started tripping over her own lies the longer the court case went on. And then this is the first time that this sexual shaming thing was done. A girl named Amanda Walsh out in Tramore, out in Apollonia Apartments. I was living in Apollonian Apartments as well. She spread all this list of pornography sites that was supposed that it came from my kind of internet, from me. She spread this, everywhere. It was put in people's letterboxes. It was put absolutely everywhere. I can't emphasise how far and how wide this was done. It was done all around Tramore. It was a trial really for what was to come. But that was the first time this was done. It was done by Amanda Walsh. When I got wind of it was about 3 days into it. So obviously I went to the guards. I explained the situation to the guards. The guards were kind of non-too-plussed, told me to rise above it. I kept going back. They eventually then went down and they spoke with this Amanda Walsh. She was living above me, in an apartment above me. She denied knowing me. She denied knowing me ex. Said I was imagining things. Everyone in Tramore knew what was after being done. And about 2 weeks after this, then the court started up again, and she comes in, this Amanda Walsh, she comes into the court and sits with me ex, and the two sit there laughing over what they were after doing. So I walks in, I sees the two up there, I purposely don't even look at them, I walk past them purposely, so I'm standing maybe back to them, because I don't want to turn around and be deemed that I'm breaking the safety order. And Leona MacDonald comes in and she keeps asking me, who's that standing with your ex? turn around and have a look. And I was like, no, you're fine. And she kept asking me, just have a look, is that one of her sisters? I was after seeing her on the way in, so I purposely wasn't going to look. But she tried everything and anything to try and get me to turn around and have a look. And they wouldn't look. But this was this Amanda Walsh. This is the woman who said that she didn't know me or didn't know me ex. And here she was in court sitting with me ex and the two of them laughing over. But I'll give you some kind of an idea of how kind of corrupt and how toxic that whole court case was. And that was the first time this whole sexual shaming was done in an effort to try and remove me from my community. And as I said, nobody knows about the input of Dr. Anne Carey before any of this sexual slander and how desperate Dr. Anne Carey was to have her actions covered. I was in rehab for like drug addiction, porn addiction, alcohol addiction, cocaine addiction, the porn addiction, the sex addiction. It all comes with the cocaine addiction, unfortunately. My ex knew this. She was in there for crack addiction. And this was done again a number of times after this. And I'll speak more in depth as I go into the videos, because I need to speak in depth to kind of give context to just how bad this really got. And they never thought in a million years that I would talk about this because of the embarrassing nature of it. They thought that I wouldn't talk about it. Well, i.e. Dr. Anne Carey thought I wouldn't talk about it. They manipulated certain kind of pornography stuff that was sent around, thinking that I wouldn't talk about it because of the whole embarrassing nature of it. And at the same time then it lured more and more people in, and people thought they were getting rid of a kind of pedophile out of the water for that there was some kind of moral issue. But realistically it was these people were after getting caught being corrupt, and now they were clinging on to the narrative that they need to look like it's some kind of moral issue, when in fact it was the fact they got caught being corrupt, nothing more, nothing less. I've said from day one about this, I've admitted that some of that is mine, some of it is not mine, that people should go to the guards and report it, that they could do this anonymously or they could do it and give their names. I don't have an issue with it. But this pornography, this list of pornography, was actually put into my landlord's letterbox. He's not my landlord, he was the caretaker of the block of apartments. He handled all the rents, he wasn't really the landlord. But this person was desperate to get me out of the apartment. He was after reporting my wife living there. I originally signed into the contract. As I said, Catherine O'Brien got me the apartment to move me away from Tony Kelly because he was out making comments regarding the kids. Remember I spoke about this person earlier? So I got that apartment under a contract for €550 a month. This Pat Doyle, who was the caretaker, he wanted 575. I gave him that. Then he wanted 6. I gave him that. Then he wanted 625. I gave him that. Then he was moaning that it was 700, 750, that the rents were increasing. So I essentially told him where to go, if I'm being honest with you, in no uncertain terms. Because as I said, he's not even the landlord. He was only a caretaker. He was pocketing the money. And he tried everything in that to try and get myself and my wife out of there. He kept reporting us to the dole. He kept reporting us to the council. And then when Amanda Walsh put this kind of sexual literature in his letterbox, he sent it on to the owner of the apartment and he got us evicted. And not only that, then he handed it into Waterford Council. And I'll explain as I go further into this how I found out that he was out to hand it into Waterford Council, because it's Waterford Council I really have an issue with, and it's Waterford Council I want to take a case against. But I need to explain all this. I can only apologise for how long this has taken. So we got evicted. We got 3 months to move out, myself and my wife. I was contacting Waterford Council. At the time I was 27 years on the housing list. And I eventually found a house I was to move into, and Waterford Council then was supposed to pay the deposit, and they delayed it for I think 4 to 6 weeks, kept delaying it, and the person eventually then he couldn't hold on to the house for me any longer. It was done on purpose. And then they offered me a house on the Friday. They offered me a house up in 83 Barrack Street. I was supposed to move out by the Monday, and they came along Friday and said they had a house. So I didn't really have a choice but to take it. I wasn't allowed to go up and have a look at the house. I had to just move into the house. And the house was in the one place that I wrote years ago that I didn't want to live, because it was from where I was from originally and I didn't want to be in around that area. But that's where I was put, into 83 Barrack Street, Waterford. And this is my whole case, what I want to bring, starts here. So we ended up having to move into this 83 Barrack Street. So as I said, we were offered the house on the Friday, had to be gone by the Monday, so I had 2 or 3 days to move our stuff into the house, which is what we did. So I'll take a break here and I'll be back soon.